How did Russell Westbrook go from this
Moving and eyeing and give Russell an and one.
to this?
Staples Center tonight. Game 3.
What?
5-game
Contest. Westbrook again trying to hook.
clock. It's 3 ahead of the game clock. Russell Westbrook loses it.
What? Bro, what are you talking about, man?
When you look at Russell Westbrook's career, it's hard not to be impressed. The guy averaged a triple-double for an entire season, 4 times. He's been MVP, 2-time scoring champ, 3-time assist leader, and he's a 9-time All-Star. So when the Lakers made a blockbuster trade to get Brodie, everyone in the world instantly put the team into championship contention. But we're more than 50 games into the season, and the Los Angeles Lakers are playing like trash. The team is struggling to remain above 500, and Westbrook has been taking a majority of the heat. He was recently benched in the fourth quarter of a close Pacers game. In the post-game interview, Coach Frank Vogel said that he was simply playing guys that he thought would win the game. The move has prompted a lot of questions about Russell's status with the team. Is he really this useless? Has he just been putting up empty stats his whole career? And is he really incapable of contributing to this team's success? I dug into the numbers, team statistics, advanced player metrics, and game footage to find out. What's wrong with Westbrook? The thing about Russ is that many of the problems we're seeing right now have been around him for a while. It's just that all those problems are more obvious now because he's 33 years old. He's getting older, slower, and easier to defend. He doesn't seem to possess the elite basketball IQ like some floor generals like Chris Paul or LeBron James. He's not 28 like he was when he won the MVP, and the situation in LA is pretty ugly. This season, Russ is averaging 18 points, 8 rebounds, and 7 assists per game. That stat line is something only 10 other players in the history of the league have ever done. Every one of these 10 players is an all-time great or current superstar. Magic, Michael, LeBron, Wilt, Russ, Luka, Harden, Jokic. Still, the Lakers are struggling. So let's forget about Russell's individual achievements just for a moment. Instead, let's look at overall team statistics. Here's what we've seen on teams before Russell Westbrook joined them, during his career there, and after he left. In 2019, Chris Paul was traded for Russell Westbrook. Russell joined James Harden and the Rockets. Chris Paul joined the tank-ready OKC Thunder. We can pretty clearly see how Russ put up numbers, yet the team underperformed, and how Chris Paul took a team in rebuild mode to the playoffs. In 2019, Paul George and Russ won 60% of their games. They had a middle-of-the-pack playoff rating, and when playoff time came, they got stomped by Damian Lillard and the Blazers.
Good night, Oklahoma City.
In 2020, Chris Paul and OKC won 61% of their games. They had virtually the same team stats, but improved their defense. This was a team that had no other All-Stars. It was CP3 and solid role players. Now check out the other side with the Houston Rockets. In 2009, CP3 and Harden were the second best offense in the league. They won 65% of their games. They nearly took down KD, Steph, and Clay in the Western Conference Finals before Chris Paul got hurt in Game 6. In 2020, Russ joins Harden and the Rockets. Russ puts up massive numbers, averaging 27 points, 7 assists, and 8 rebounds. But their team stats dropped in nearly every category, and the team won 61% of their games. They barely scraped by CP3 and OKC in the opening round of the 2020 playoffs. The following year, Russ gets traded to the Wizards. He joins a team that in 2020 were pretty trash. They won just 35% of their games, had a mediocre assist and offensive rating, and were one of the worst defenses in the league. Then in 2021, Russ joined. The team at points, assists, and ratings stayed largely the same, but they won more games and made the playoffs. So that's a point for Russ. However, this year, the team is still performing decently well. They're winning more games than they did last year with Russ. Their offensive rating has dropped, but they average the same assists and have also improved their defense. The only reason this team is the 10th seed is because the entire Eastern Conference got stronger. Overall, I'd say Russ had a positive impact on the team's success from 2020 to 2021. However, it's still questionable whether his impact outweighs this year's team, who instead of Russ picked a few key role players. With the Lakers this year, it's more of the same. Russ puts up historic numbers, but the team loses more, and they have a worse defensive rating, and their offensive rating doesn't noticeably improve. There are obviously a bunch of different factors that play into a team's success, but the pattern here is pretty undeniable. At this stage in his career, there's no real evidence that Russ's individual numbers lead to a team's success. And there is some evidence that he's had a negative impact. Teams don't seem to pass more when he's on them, and they don't seem to be more offensively efficient with him either. And more importantly, they don't seem to win more with him. It will be extremely interesting to see how a healthy Lakers team performs come playoff time, and whether Russ can break the mold of his last few seasons. Enough about the team though. Let's look directly at one of Russell's biggest critiques, his efficiency. Efficiency has always been an issue for Russell. It's been big numbers and low or inconsistent shooting percentages for the majority of his career. But as he gets older and less athletic, things are getting worse. This year, his player efficiency rating is horrible. PER measures a player's per minute productivity. Russell's PER of 15.6 is second worst of his career. ESPN ranks him the 132nd player in the league, behind point guards like TJ McConnell. His Raptor rating is negative 3.1. Raptor ratings are a smart plus or minus stat. It basically shows whether you are more valuable to your team on the court or off. For comparison, Nikola Jokic leads the league with a PER of 33.26 and a Raptor rating of 13.7. Simply, when Russ is on the court, the Lakers do worse. What's going on? Well, Russ isn't hitting his jump shots, layups, or foul shots like he used to. His field goal percentage of 43% is the fourth worst of his career. Within 5 feet of the rim, Russ shoots just 53%, while other guards like Drew Holiday shoot 57%, and Kyrie Irving shoots 70% near the rim. When he does get to the line, Russ crumbles. At the foul line, Russ currently shoots 67%, which is crazy to see from a former MVP who once shot 85% in 2017. We could be looking at a serious hack-a-shack candidate come playoff time.
In the quarter, as Simmons misses again, and without...
Now, in the past, Russell's inefficiency didn't really matter. His ability to attack the basket over and over again put the defense on their heels and created easy shots, even when he bricked the layup. OKC was number 1 in the league in offensive rebounds from 2014 until 2019. Steven Adams basically made a career of cleaning up Russell's trash. But with the Lakers, it's totally different. Dwight Howard and DeAndre Jordan haven't seen the court. AD has been hurt and the Lakers haven't been playing Russell's style of basketball. It's looking like a terrible team fit. Right now, the Lakers just get 9 offensive rebounds per game, compared to the 14 offensive rebounds OKC averaged while Russ was there. So Russell's drives aren't creating second chance opportunities like they used to. Instead, they're just bad shots. Plus, the Lakers this year don't take care of the ball like they should. They're currently ranked 25th in the league in turnovers per game, and guess who's leading them in that category? Russ's 4.2 turnovers per game is actually middle of the pack in terms of his career, but they're good for third most in the league, and they're double what players like Chris Paul and Steph Curry have been giving up. To be fair though, high turnovers come with high usage rates, and Russ has one of the higher usage rates in the whole league. His near 2-to-1 assist-to-turnover ratio is actually pretty good. Still, it's not a category you want your star point guard dominating. The Lakers are also currently ranked 25th in personal fouls per game. Guess who leads them there? Russell is averaging 3.1 fouls per game, which is the third worst average of his career. If you're still wondering how a player who's posting stats like Russ just can't seem to help his team win, then all of your answer is right here. The current lineup is a bad fit. He's shooting worse, turning the ball over, and fouling more. This can be chalked up to him getting older, but it also has to do with his basketball IQ. The term basketball IQ is sort of a weird one. It's not like there's any real metric for it, but most big basketball fans seem to know who has it and who doesn't. What makes Russ one of the more divisive players in history of the game is that he may be one of the best players who doesn't really have an elite basketball IQ. But wait, triple-doubles have historically been racked up by the game's most brilliant minds. Magic, LeBron, Larry Bird, Jason Kidd. Westbrook is the undisputed king of triple-doubles. So how can he not be a basketball genius like the rest of these guys? Well, it's kind of hard to say. But if I had to take a guess, I'd say it's because Russ spent a large portion of his career just being way more athletic than everyone else. Russell seems to only operate on one single mode, attack. Recently, even Shaq had to let Russ know to slow things down and play at his own pace. In the past, his physical gifts have made him extremely successful, but as he's aged, it's becoming less effective. When it comes to the half-court set, Russ has seemed to struggle more than ever this season. Check out how Rajon Rondo manipulated defenses to get super easy buckets for his teammates. Both Rajon and Russ are great passers. The difference between these two isn't in ability, it's the approach. Rondo would rather outsmart his defender. Russell would rather physically dominate them. The same goes for his shot selection. Russell has never let his shooting split stop him from hoisting up more, even when he's struggling. When he's in attack mode, he thinks every shot he takes is a good one regardless of his teammates. Here's an example of Russell's mindset a few games back when the Lakers faced the Sixers. The Lakers run a pick and pop. Russell doesn't really get much off the drive and instead goes to the baseline and turns the ball over. At this point in the game, AD is 10 for 13. He's on fire. All Russ needs to do on this play is dump the ball to AD at the elbow and let him operate with 5 seconds left. Still, he chooses the attack mode option and ends up turning the ball over. Doing stuff like this on a LeBron-led team will never end well for you.
James now wanted a timeout, but too late to get it.
Russ's defensive IQ is also questionable. He's clearly left his man open hunting for rebounds in the past, and he's also the type of player to favor going for the steal rather than playing it safe and staying in front of his opponent. But in LA, he seems to be taking things up a notch. So, are the Lakers struggling this year because it's Russell's fault like so many seem to think? Well, it's pretty easy to point fingers to the declining numbers, the ugly shots, and the questionable on-court decision-making and blame Russ and Russ alone. But that's not really fair to him, and it's a little too forgiving for the Lakers. I mean, at least the roster construction from last season made more sense. There was a lot more defense, a lot more size, and a lot more rebound. That Lakers identity was canned in favor of more offense, more shooting, more 2013 All-Stars. Whatever their game plan was, you can't really blame Russ for being a part of a team when he clearly was a tough fit alongside LeBron. He's not a great shooter, and he dominates the ball on the offensive end. Between all the new players trying to fit in, the awkward roster construction, the injured superstars, and yes, the new ball-dominant star with declining numbers, it's actually pretty easy to see why the Lakers are struggling to meet expectations. It's only about halfway through the season, and Russ has shown that he's slow to develop chemistry with new teams in the past. There's always a chance that everyone gets healthy. A clever move is made by the trade deadline, and things start to lock into place by playoff time. For now, though, it seems like the Lakers are going to have to deal with a whole lot of this. If you enjoy these longer videos, hit the subscribe button and tick the notification bell. I have a ton of awesome content coming out, and I always tailor my videos for the Henry Hoops audience. So if you don't want to miss out, hit the subscribe button. Peace.
Westbrook thought about it. Crowd kind of telling him no, and he missed it. Davis another rebound. Fouled and one.
What?